everyone, and welcome to episode 11 of the Being Youthful podcast. I am Kim Beegler. I am the owner of Ewethful Fiber Farm and Mill. I'm here in Halsey, Oregon, and you can find us all over the place. Our website is youthfulfiberfarm.com. We are on Instagram at Ewethful Fiber Mill and also at Being Youthful Podcast. And then we're on Facebook at Ewethful Fiber Farm and Mill, I believe. And we also have a blog at beingyouthful.com. I should say I'm the one that writes on that. So welcome to episode 11. Thank you all for joining me again. What's been going on? A lot of stuff. I went on a wool buy this last weekend, which was super fun. It was a person I have bought from before, but haven't really had a chance to sit and talk to her much. And her fiber that she grows is absolutely stunning. And she runs a lot of sheep just not too far north of us. And so I went this weekend and bought wool from her and did a little interview with her just to kind of talk and learned more about her. And I'm going to share that with you guys in a mini-sode this coming weekend. So that'll come out probably Saturday. So I didn't want to make this podcast too long. Always my goal, right? So I did that, and I bought some amazing Romney wool, and I'll show you guys that probably in the next podcast. But I bought some Romney from her that will go towards our Halsey yarn, which is the Romney alpaca and silk that I think in the last podcast we talked about so much. And I also bought some Horn Dorset from her. So anyway, there'll be more about that in the mini-sode that'll come out this weekend. And the lambs are getting bigger. We said goodbye to our rams this last week. Just kind of a decision that I made a couple months ago where I decided that lambing, while I love it, and obviously having lambs is amazing, it's just not something that I want to pursue at this point. And a lot has changed in our life, and a lot of the land we have has changed, and just all sorts of things. And I'm busy, and Mitch is busy. And so lambing is just something that takes extra time, it takes extra stress, and it's just not kind of where we want to be right now. And so we let the rams move on, and in the future, because there are such amazing people around us that are breeding and growing amazing sheep, we'll just buy for a while. And that's the plan for now. And it's just part of all of the shift I'm making with the business and with us, and trying to, as I was kind of talked about in the last podcast, find that balance, right? I can't do everything. And I've been talking just randomly to different women that I've come across, especially in this industry, and there's an overwhelming theme of we just can't do everything always. So trying to figure out those boundaries, and that was one of them. So we won't lamb for quite a long time, but we will still bring in new lambs from breeders that I know well, and that's where we're at right now. So there is a gap at the farm a bit. It's a little bit quiet, and that pasture will always be the boys' pasture, even as we rotate other animals through. And they were pretty awesome rams, and we appreciate what they did for us and for the farm. And yeah, and at the same time, we also brought a new barn cat into our world. So I'll try to get a picture of her. She is living in my studio right now so that she can acclimate to our new space. But she was a barn cat at another place. She is social with people, which is something I wanted, so I could easily keep her up on vaccines and just keep her healthy. Just makes it easier. Also makes it easier for us to relocate them. Ferals are not super easy to relocate. We have done it, but it's not that easy. So she's doing well. The first 2 days she hid, and yesterday she just popped out and was like, hey, I'm Wish. I love you. Pet me. So she's really sweet, and I'll try to get a picture of her in here. We've had a little bit of rain, which I think it's the first time our lambs have seen rain, which is terrifying given that we're in Oregon and it's only April. So, and the lambs are like a month old now. So Mitch was running around fertilizing the night before the rain was coming because we want to get the pastures nice and green. So he was busy doing that. I got my second vaccine. Whoop, whoop. So I'm going to see some family here soon, which is super exciting. I'm past the point of, well, basically I'm immune now, right? My immune system is up and ready, so I feel safe. And obviously I will still be distancing and wearing masks and doing all the things, but I'm lucky enough that the people I'm going to be seeing are all vaccinated too. So I'm feeling very grateful for that. And for those worried about those, that blue jay it still pops in and out. I have caught it in there before, but I basically just am being more aware of pulling eggs more often throughout the day. So, which is fine. The dogs appreciate the extra walk down to the barn. So we just are pulling eggs more timely, and that seems to be helping. And I'm not sure it wasn't one of my chickens that was breaking some of them too, but we seem to have turned a little corner on that. So that's great, because it's nice to have eggs. So I think I'm gonna do catch up at the farm video, let you guys see the lambs, and say hi to June and the alpaca that are freshly shaved. And actually, I'm gonna share some video from their shearing, because that was something else that happened in the last couple of weeks, is the alpaca got shorn. So I took some video of Alma. Well, I took some video of some of the other, but they were screaming. They're very melodramatic, some of them. So Alma was like the perfect angel for her shearing, and they are kind of tied down by their feet. They're not hurting. None of this hurts them. It's just a way to keep everybody safe, because some of the alpacas act up. They have quite a kick if they want to kick. We do not have small alpacas either. So it's just a way to make it quick and safe for the shearer and for the people working and for the alpacas. So anyway, have no fear that they were not harmed, and they're all pretty and skinny and tiny now. So I'll show some video of that too and let you see the lambs and catch up on that, and then I will be back and we can talk a little bit more. Okay, see you in a minute. Pretty lady Alma, she's so good. She makes it look so easy. Alma feels so good.
Exactly. Get the hose after her.
Okay, everyone, the farm. Elsie's gonna lead the way. You can see the babies are all down there. Let's see if I can get it on them, because they're being crazy right now. We'll see. So, here's everybody. Ply out and see if the babies will come in. They're being nuts. See if they'll start running for us. That would be nice. Something I could never get. Lots of headbutting and humping happening. You know, as they do. Hopefully I'm not making you guys sick by... Don't worry, the girls are humping too. It's not just a boy thing. So here we are, and all the adults are like, what's wrong with these guys? Just stay and watch them be crazy for a little bit. See if they'll give us a show. never catch this on camera, so they're on to me. That's Alexa something. I don't know why that makes me laugh, but we are catching them in quite a moment here that I can never get on film. See if they come tearing for us. Apparently this is the time. And I better keep moving because June needs to be let out. Maybe they'll keep running the other direction. And June's probably going to start neighing here. I think this is the best part of lambs. See if they come tearing back. You can see Cash is lots of baby energy. There's Moira. I was like, we're missing one. Moira always does her own thing. She's pretty funny. All right, we better. Cash is running back and forth. It's very hard for him to handle this. Okay, I'm going to keep moving. And we'll just keep recording in case they decide to do another tear. We'll go let June out. I think I talked in the last video about how because it's spring and we're fertilizing, we're not letting her out quite as much during the day because the grass is so rich. Here's Cash. He's waiting. Nigel. Velma, always eating stuff. Junebug, we're coming. There she is. So, because it's, the grass is so rich right now, it is too high in sugars and stuff for most, I think she's ready. Most horses. Good morning, afternoon, whatever it is. Goodness gracious. All right, Junebug, you ready? Is it your time, baby girl? She's like, let me the heck out. She pushes past the alpaca. She doesn't care anymore. She's like, let me get to some grass. So we just let her out in the kind of late afternoon. Hi, Alma. You gonna come say hi? Oh, hi. Oh, hi, Alma. I don't have any food. I'm sorry. No food. Well, that was nice of you to come up for the camera. She's like, I'm done with you. Okay, we're gonna go check for eggs and then we'll check in on the babies one more time. All right, so here we are in the coop and we're hoping and praying that my eggs aren't all destroyed. No egg Or maybe we don't have any eggs inside and they're hiding from me again, dang it. Let's see what we've got. One egg, which this is my mama's, we call her mama chicken, our little tiny chicken. And let's see if we can find anything else. Oh goodness. So, probably, this is, I think, the only egg I've pulled today. So, I'm guessing that they have found a new place that they have decided to lay. So, we'll start the Easter egg hunt again. And let's pop out the back and see what the babies are doing. See if we can get anyone to come up and say hi. Here's all the babies. Here's all the babies. Hi guys. Hi Patrick. Oh my goodness, you guys are panting. You're wild. Wild. Taraji's telling Moira, you're not mine. Sorry about that, guys. Sheesh. Bad camera woman. Alright, we're going to go in and see if anyone wants to come up and say hi, which I know that Johnny does. He's right here. Ooh, excuse me. That's Andy. That's Moira. Moira just does. She beats to her own drummer. Taraji. This is Johnny's mom. And Johnny's with me, of course, because that's what he does. Hi, Andy. And Andy's very sweet, too. If you've ever spun Andy's fiber, it is something special. He's going to come say hi. Hi, Andy. Sorry, bud. Kind of threw that up. And then here's Johnny. Oh, gosh, I can't even get him because he's jumping on me so much. You can see the babies are still being nuts. Hi, Andy. And Andy's horns are getting very close to his head. He's like 6 years old, and suddenly his horns, where I used to be able to stick a finger in between his horns and his head, I cannot. So he's going to get his horns trimmed at this shearing. Let's see if I can look over him at. That's Moira and Alexis, they're sisters. And they're being wild together, which is nice. Moira kind of tends to just do her own thing, and she plays with them, but not as much, so it's fun to, and you just missed Patrick jump about. Who are we missing here? Oh, Johnny, who's attacking me, and I can't get footage of them and him, so I don't know what Johnny or Patrick's doing over there. So they're all getting big. As you can see, they're all healthy and happy, and Andy wants you to focus on him. And Johnny is literally climbing my back. I don't know why he's not pulling. He wants us attention. So that's where everybody's at. Everybody else is grazing, and soon we'll move them to a new pasture here. But and they're like, let's take a break and eat a little. Here's Johnny. Oh, Johnny. As soon as I leave, he'll go join everybody else, but he is just such a social and sweet dude. All right, guys. Hope you've enjoyed. There's my JoJo girl. She's sitting in the pasture. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this farm tour. I'm glad that everybody was behaving for us. That was fun. All right, Andy. All right. He wants to take it out. Say bye, Andy. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. Those lambs are ridiculous. 3 of them I can pet. Well, Patrick, the black one, literally runs across the pasture to come up and say hi. Johnny and Alexis follow pretty quickly. The other 3, not so much, but we'll work on it. And that's okay. That's okay, because then the 3 of them come up, and then once the older sheep figure out that I am handing out pets, they come, and eventually I just have to get up and leave the pasture because they all just close in, and then there's lambs jumping on you because they want attention or eating your clothes or whatever. So anyway, everybody's doing good. And a little bit about what I'm working on personally. I have been hand spinning more of this because I started a sweater. So I'm going to show you that. So here's my knitting, what I'm working on with knitting. And here is the beginning of my sweater in this yarn. And I love how it's turning out. So it's going to be a cardigan, which I have not knit a cardigan before. I'll show you what it's going to look like. But I'm so happy with how the yarn and the fiber and the fabric is turning out. And I did want to talk just for a second about, especially when you're working with hand spun or farm yarns, it is a little bit different than working with some of the commercially milled yarns. Sometimes they respond a little bit differently once you start knitting them or once you block them. So always, always, always swatch when you're working with farm. I mean, you probably should always swatch. Again, if you're doing big garments and things you really want to fit, definitely swatch because the yarns may behave a little bit more. They may fluff out a little bit more, especially once they are knit up. So, and keep in mind what fabric you want in your finished garment, right? It doesn't always have to be what the pattern is saying. And I'll show you my pattern. And I think that the sweater in this pattern is a little bit denser than what I'm going to end up with. But here's the sweater I'm doing. And it's from Home and Away. Hannah Fettig is the designer, and this particular sweater is called Georgetown. And I love this book. I have actually knit another sweater out of this book, and I love it because every pattern is seamless or seamed, whichever way you want to knit it. Some of them have like a little bit of seaming, but for the most part, you can either knit the sweater seamless or you can knit it seamed. So that's wonderful. And I am knitting this seamless. I think there's a tiny bit of seaming, but anyway, so, you know, I think it took me a long time as a knitter to realize that, you know, I would just get so stuck in following the pattern that I didn't necessarily look at the fabric while I was doing it to say, ooh, I like this or I don't. So when you're swatching, make sure you like the fabric, or adjust your needle size if you don't like the fabric that you're making. If you think it's too tight, or like this is going to be a pretty airy, flowy sweater, and I think that I'm going to love that. I mean, that's kind of what I'm planning it for, because it is, it's also a very soft fiber, so I know I can wear it next to skin. So if I just want to throw something on over a short sleeve shirt or a tank top, this sweater will work, and it's going to be pretty light. So anyway, just when you're swatching, take into mind what you like when you're looking at the swatch. Do you actually like how it looks? Not just does it meet the parameters of how many stitches per inch or whatever, just do you like the fabric? And if not, maybe try to adjust so that you do like the fabric. So that's what I'm working on. So I'm spinning a lot of that too. And I have been weaving a little bit. I got to a point for the first time where one of my warp, because I'm using a lot of Ewethful kind of reject yarns for my knitting that have built up. And this one had a knot, which I don't think is a reject, but there were kind of some waffles through it. So the knot broke in my warp, which the warp is what's going up and down, and you need it to not break. So this is the first time I repaired something on my loom. I repaired that warp thread, and I did it by attaching it to the bottom where I was weaving and then using weights over the end. And I'll take some pictures here too. There were some different options for doing it, and it looked like this was kind of the most seamless way to do it if you don't mind having something hanging off the other side of your loom, which I was like, well, what do I know? So I'll take some pictures and show you that, but I got that fixed yesterday, and now I'm just weaving right along again on my plaid. So I'll throw in some pictures so you can see where that's going. It's so, I just am really enjoying weaving, really enjoying weaving. So that's kind of what I've been working on at home. Something else happened in the last couple of days. I got somebody came by the mill and said that their mother had passed away recently, which is not great news. But they were trying to clear out a lot of her estate, and they lived just over in the next town from us, and was I interested in any of her spinning stuff, which they really had no idea what any of it was. So I said, sure, right, come by and let me take a peek at it. So I met this woman outside the coffee shop a couple days ago, and I exchanged, took some of the stuff off of her hands, and it was quite a bit of stuff. It was actually a Ewethful wheel and a little carding machine and a hand carding machine and a skein winder, and just a couple different things. And it looked a little bit rough, and I took it over to the farm and we opened it up. I mean, the first thing she handed me actually was a bobbin, and it was full of yarn, and as I suspected, because this happens a lot when I get estate stuff, it was totally moth eaten, and I could see the sand, and I'm going to include a picture here because it's leading to my next topic of moths. But there was a lot of kind of sand-like stuff on the bobbin, and I could see where the yarn was eaten through. So actually that stuff I set aside, I put it into a bag because I am super paranoid about moths. I don't want them getting my stuff. So I put that all in a plastic bag, and then I took everything over to the farm before I even went home. We blew everything out with the air compressor, and we opened up the box that the carter was in, and I was like, mouse poop. Sure enough, there was not a mouse. So lucky here. I have seen mice in fiber, so this is not surprising for me, but there was a whole little mouse house in there. So we blew that off, and the carter will need a little bit of extra work just because some of it rusted out from the mouse pee. But you know what? It is in great shape otherwise. So we'll clean it up, get some new carding cloth on it, and that little guy will be cranking along again. And everything else, once I got it pieced together and figured out what was what, seems to be in pretty good shape. And I cleaned it all up and wiped it down. But there was lots of moth damage, which you guys, moths, and I have a thing with moths, and it's not just wool moths, it's just moths in general, and I'm trying to get over it, much as I'm trying to get over so many of my little quirky things like bats. But when I was a kid, I grew up on the East Coast, and I spent a lot of my summers on the East Coast. My parents were divorced, for half of my childhood, I lived in California. My dad still lived on the East Coast, so we would go back during the summer, and the moths, oh my God. And I remember this giant, I mean, I'm not kidding, it was like a giant moth, and it was like underneath our porch, and I slammed the wood door shut, because I probably screamed, I was like, ah, and I opened it, and just like the inside of the moth was like just huge and dripping down. Oh God. And that was like my childhood trauma of moths. And then when I bought the dog hotel, it was a project place to be, for sure, and it had a house on it. I have a history of this, don't worry guys, this is what I do. But we moved in after an intense amount of cleaning, and there were pantry moths. So of course I would end up in an industry where there's moths is like your nemesis. And it also makes me think that every business, just so you know, if you are not a small business owner, every business has its nemesis. The thing that like keeps you up at night when it is a potential, when it comes through, whatever. And it's just one of those things that I had a vet, like when I had the dog kennel cough, oh my, it drove me batty when kennel cough would come through, because my job was to take care of these animals and to keep them healthy. And then this virus comes through and it gets them coffee. And usually kennel cough is okay, but sometimes it can be bad, and you want to try not to spread it to the, anyway. I had a vet once tell me that you haven't been in business long enough if you haven't seen a big thing like that. So I always try to tell myself that. And I look at other businesses and I go, oh, that's their thing. That's the thing that they fear. Anyway, sidetrack there. But moths is now my thing that I am like, besides my history with them, I just don't like them. And it's not, I mean, I don't kill moths on a regular basis, but anyway, moths. So moths are real. Moths will get into your fiber and they will destroy it. And I watch a lot of podcasts where people have the yarn all in these big, beautiful bins behind them, and it makes me cringe because I think, oh my God, if a moth gets, if you get some moths in there, it could potentially take out so much of your stash. So I would love to have all my fiber and my stuff out, but I don't. At home, I have everything secure. Here at the mill, I have everything secure. And when I have the mill store open, it all comes out, we show it, I put it back in. Because I just, especially if you live in an old home or an old building, it's just easier for them to get in. So moths, so what do? So at home, a lot of my yarn or stash, and I meant to show you, I'll grab one. A lot of my stuff is kept in Ziploc bags. I did that a long time ago. The last house I lived at was an old farmhouse before we bought our current place, and moths got into some of my stuff. It was my most expensive basket of stuff too. And they didn't just like eat away. And I should say that it is the larvae of the moth. So eggs are laid in your yarn. The larvae hatch. Those little larvae are what start to eat away at your wool. And it's not just yarn, I should say. It can be your clothes. So you don't have to be a knitter to have, obviously, moth problems. It got into, and I had a basket, and for some reason I have found that they like baskets, and I'm sure it's because it's another natural fiber. And if you have a lot of yarn sitting in a basket, and be careful, I would put it away. Because they didn't just eat, it was like 4 skeins were together, so it just like ate through, well, just like each one. Little jerks, and some of it was really expensive yarn. Little jerks, I say. So since that point, I do not leave yarn out. Unless I'm working on it, I really don't leave it out. Or working with it. So at home, a lot of my stuff is in Ziploc bags, and I put it into my cupboards, and then I just pull it out when I need to see it. I also have, so something else that is great is these, like, you get like your comforters and stuff come in these bags that have the big zips on them. These are really good for putting your yarn and stuff in. And of course, like, nobody wants to keep using plastic, but you can, in theory, you're using yarn, and then you can keep reusing your plastic bags, right? Or you can reuse these. So that's a great thing that you can use, and I think it keeps, technically moths can eat through plastic. I have not had a big problem with that. So that's one thing to use. Another, which is what I use a lot of here at the mill, is you can get these tubs. A lot of people, you probably could keep it in tubs that don't have this, but these, and there's a couple, you can get these at Target, but these have a little bit of styrofoam on the inside that makes it seal better. So when they, you can see, so when you clasp it, it's got just a better seal on it. So I have a bazillion of these. I keep all of my raw wool here at the mill, especially. Actually, I keep everything in the mill, in these really. Raw wool, I keep finished yarns, fibers, everything basically goes into these, because it is like and I have never had, knock on wood, I've never had a moth issue with them getting in it. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't put something in here that has moths. In theory, I don't think they could live, because it is fairly airtight. I don't think that they would live forever and ever and ever. But that's a really good option, especially if, you can get a bunch of these and put most of your yarn in it, and then really you can kind of still see, or get really organized and organize it by color or weight or whatever. Other things about moths. Moths do not like light. So if you've been stuffing your yarn or your wool away in drawers or in that closet or in baskets with the very bottom and nothing's getting moved, there's a good chance moths are going to get to you. They like dark, they like quiet, they like undisturbed, they like raw, but they'll eat anything if they need to. They like dirt. So dirty wool is a high thing for them. They like it if it's been worn, if you've been wearing it. So, their sweat or anything like that, that is an attractant for them also. So things you can do, store everything away. Other things they do not like, light is not their ideal. Things moving, not their ideal. Scents, they don't like. It's a deterrent for them. So one thing, like we have these little bags that I make up that are lavender sashes that you can put in stuff. Cedar, if you're lucky enough, I think it's cedar. Yeah, cedar. They don't like the cedar. So a lot of times there used to be, I've seen them in thrift stores before, and they're stunning, like wool cedar chests, but the whole thing is lined with wool, and that is to keep moths away from your wool products. So those are things to do. Also, dryer sheets. Dryer sheets are strong. You can just stick them in with your wool, and that's probably going to be a deterrent. I would go for putting them away. I wouldn't necessarily be like, let me just stick this in here and expect that to do it. But those are some ideas for you on things to do. When I bring stuff, and be careful when you're purchasing stuff. So like this sweater, I did not knit. I actually got this at a thrift store. It is 100% wool. When I am buying stuff used, I look for wool damage, and usually you would see holes. I mean, the big thing that we tend to see is holes, or like a sandy. When you're looking at yarn, you might see the sandy more. I don't buy things if they have holes, basically. For me, it's just my thing. I'm not gonna worry about it. But I bought this at the thrift store. I came home, I put it in a plastic bag, and then I put it into the freezer. That's it. I left it there for like a month. Then I washed it. Then it's ready to be introduced into my stuff. I don't do that with all yarn and stuff like that. If I were buying anything, any wool products or any natural like yarns or anything from a thrift store or from an estate sale, I would most definitely do that. Because it's been sitting in somebody else's environment basically. And I don't, a lot of times that stuff just gets tucked away instead of being stored properly. If I go to the yarn shop, I don't worry about it because that's what they're doing. They're keeping on top of it. But if I'm buying stuff, like I said, used, I will go through those precautions. If I'm buying raw wool, most of the time I kind of have it in a separate quarantine area. I am not super good about putting all my wool into bins or anything like that. There's so many different ways you can do it. And I'll put a link here. I think one of Cheryl, one of the people that I am friends with on Instagram, I'm friends with in real life. She, and I think Judith McKenzie maybe talks about this too, puts it into like those 5-gallon buckets that you get from Home Depot with the lids on them that you can really screw in, and they're pretty airtight. So those are great ideas. I am not so good about it, but I tend to move my wool pretty quickly. So, anyway, so those are some things. When I bring raw wool home, if I don't know the source and I know that they're super on top of that stuff, I kind of put it into a separate quarantine area. I don't put it around the rest of my wool just in case moths pop up. I don't want them to get into the rest of my stash of raw wool. Camelid, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's all the dirt in the camelid, but they love camelid fibers. So alpaca, llama, any of that, be mindful that moths love that stuff. So I think that's it. I'll post a picture here so you can see the bobbin I saw that had the wool damage on it. I mean, and the signs of wool damage in your yarn or your fibers, holes. If you've got yarn and there's a bunch of breaks in it, if you have little, if you see moths, not all moths, but if you see moths coming out of your fiber, obviously that's an issue. And they do leave kind of like a sandy residue, which I hope you'll be able to see in the picture of the bobbin. There was a lot of it. So anyway, Hebe's, that was gross, but so worth it. And I so appreciated the family passing the stuff along to me, and it will now have new life. So what's going on at the mill? So I have been doing a lot of roving and stuff, and don't worry, knitters and crocheters and weavers, I will be shifting gears here and starting to do quite a bit of yarn. But in the meantime, you can see behind me, I think last time I didn't have these colors up, but this is the Romney Alpaca Silk. There's an orange and kind of a watermelony red. They're both beautiful. The green is all gone, but there is some of this roving still left. So I finished up that stuff. Then I started doing bats. So I'm going to show you the bats, and I've got videos. So when we get to what's going on in the back of the mill, it's really just videos of that because that's what I was doing. And right now I'm getting ready to start Fiber Club, and I can't show you that. So here's one bat. And I did these bats a little bit differently this time. A lot of the bats, so the colored portion of these bats is coming from merino that is already processed and dyed. And I buy it like that. I used to. I don't really buy it anymore because I prefer to buy stuff locally, and that's just part of the transition with the business. So I'm kind of trying to get out of it and trying to use up a lot of this wool. So I did it a little bit differently with these because I did also throw in some Oregon wools in addition to the merino, but it was fine wools that I threw in. So these are all going to be next to skin. There's a tiny bit of nylon flashing that kind of, I don't know if you can see it, but just adds a little shine, a little flash to it. And there is some silk in this one, and I don't remember the name of this one, but you'll find it online. Here's another. I know this one's called Blush. And it's kind of the same thing. It's got merino, it's got another Oregon. I love just the different tones of the pinky red in there. I'm actually spinning up a little bit of leftover of this. And this also has some silk and a little bit of flashing in it. Very minimal, just to add a little bit of extra pop to it. And then the last one I did, and I called this one Poppy. You can see it's really red. It's got yellow in it. And this has silk and mohair in it. And when you open them up, you can spin them however you want. And I have written a blog post on how to spin bats. I think it was a year or two ago, but you can go back and find that. I think it's a blog post. I'm pretty sure. I'll double check and find out the month. And but if you want me to do a little how-to video because you've never spun bats before, let me know and I can make a little mini-sode that is how I spin bats, or different ways that you can spin bats. So those are all in our online shop. They are pretty fun. What else have I been doing? A little bit of dyeing. So I dyed up, I don't have much of this, but my sheep are getting ready to be shorn probably, well, definitely in May. And so I dyed up a little bit. This is some of our 100% Shetland. This is Cream Puff and Sweet Pea, two of our mamas, the two white mamas from this past year. And I have just a little bit of it left in naturals. So there's the natural gray, natural white, and then I love these two together. Oh my gosh. This is literally the color that I just love. So anyway, so that's our 100% Shetland. So that's a new little color in there. And I did dye up a new color in our Prineville base, which matches my sweater nicely. Oh, it's so pretty. So this is the yarn. It's wool and mohair that I created kind of with to be a sock yarn. And we've talked about it before, but I thought I would just show you. So here's the other colors that it comes in dyed. And all of them together are so pretty, but this purple and the red together, oh goodness gracious. Even those two together, all of them together. These two are my favorite. I don't know, this orange and blue. Anyway, this is the new color. And there's also some naturals in it. And I'll be making a lot more of this yarn coming up here soon, because this is the yarn that is going to be in that sock pattern that I talked about. So super exciting. I think the naturals with any of the colors, if you were gonna do a sock, you know, for heel, they all are super fun. And speaking of socks, remember this? I've talked about this like in my first podcast, which has been months and months. Well, this is where I am on my second sock. So I started at the toe, worked my way up. I'm like, right here, guys, I'm finishing that sock. Next time you see me, that sock is gonna be finished. And I might even have a new sock cast on. Here we go, right? Because now I'm excited to use more of my Prineville yarn and to do more socks. So that's our Prineville yarn. That's kind of what I've been doing at the mill. I've got a bunch of videos to show you guys just about how I make the bats, how I go from roving to bats on my carding machine, how it blends out, how I get it off, how I get it rolled up and looking so pretty for you guys like this. So I think I'm going to show you guys that. And that's probably it. I'll probably end on that note. So Yarn Club or Fiber Club is going out pretty soon here. Usually it gets out sometime in the second week of the month. So if you have not subscribed, I do still have some spots open. It's monthly. It's a monthly subscription. And so there's still some spots in that. Our Yarn Club will go out. I think I mentioned it in the last podcast, but it's set to go out. It'll go out in early June. So if you want to get in on that, that's a quarterly club, and you should sign up for that probably by mid-May, because I have to know how much wool I need to make all the yarn, because it is made. I do make that yarn specifically for Yarn Club, so I have to make sure I source enough of the wool to get everybody. So I think that's it, guys. I'm gonna wrap up with some videos of the mill, and that's it. I hope you guys are all well. I hope you are getting vaccines. I hope you are starting to feel like there is a little bit of hope on the horizon in all aspects of our country. And I hope that you're all staying healthy. So I will see you soon. Like I said, I'll have a new mini sewed out over the weekend as well, where you'll get to meet Maria the Shepherd, who I did my wool by with. And if you like us, please subscribe to let YouTube know, and feel free to comment and add comments about something you're wondering, looking for, advice, anything. So thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I will be here. Hi everyone, welcome. So I am getting ready to do some bats, and I thought you all might like to see how I change out. So right now I've got it hooked up to do roving, which is a lot of times what I kind of show you guys. And now I'm gonna put on my drum to do bats. And I thought I would just share the experience with you. I'm going to zip around, and we've got, so here's my drum, and we've got it basically on a motorcycle jack because it is very heavy, and me trying to move it, I actually just had to get it onto the motorcycle jack because for some reason we had done something that made me move it, and anyway, so it was not a pretty sight watching me get this onto. So I'm gonna just lift this guy up, because basically these little, there's one on the other side too, and they'll drop into that spot there. So we lift this guy up till it's up over the top of that on both sides, which is not quite. I have not done bats in quite a while, so I'm kind of excited to do them. I was kind of going to do some of my traditional bats, and we're going to try to let this down now. Smooth as butter. That's what we like to see. So, hanging on both sides, I can pull my jack out. And now I'm going to go ahead and just wipe it all down and clean off. So this is where this Velcro, it's super simple. The bat drops off of the carter in sheets, as it would with anything with the roving too. But instead of it going into the roving deck, which you can see the other end of it here and all at the end kind of peering, it'll drop off and it'll connect to this, literally it'll just stick to the Velcro, and then as it turns there's another batch of Velcro, and then from there the fiber just feeds on itself. So I will pull in and let you kind of see, just because it's a different view of it. So generally the roving or the fiber comes off there in sheets, and now it'll drop onto the drum, but a lot of times I am feeding it into the roving deck that way. So if I'm making yarn or roving for hand spinning, that's how I do it. And this will be bats. So anyway, I just thought it would be fun for you guys to see how I change out, and I'll definitely do a video of some bats coming out too, so you can see. All right, so I just thought I'd show you kind of my ends here, and there's no rhyme or reason to this. I just keep mixing it up as I go along with how much. I'm putting a lot of pink in because that's my base, and then I'm throwing in this kind of like a wine color, and then this is actual local fiber, and it's on the fine wool end, and so I'm throwing that into. I used to do my bats just with this merino that's already been processed and dyed, and I just honestly don't have as much fun making them. So I wanted to, and they were very sort of organized and perfect, and I am not as drawn to making that anymore. So now I'm making what is going to keep inspiring me and keeping me having more fun, which is this, where I just kind of can throw stuff on and not feel like, oh my gosh, what if I mess it up? So you can see there's wool, there's wools, there's some dyed silk in here that's kind of white and pink, and then there's a little bit of like stellina to add just a tiny bit of sparkle to it, and it's dyed. So we'll come around the other side, and you can see I've got lots of footage of this, but I want you to be able to see the web kind of coming off here. So the web's coming off and it's just sticking up. And you can see how different it is with my equipment. If you've watched some people with smaller carders, their carders don't blend quite as much as mine do. Mine really blends. So it hasn't gotten to the next color yet. And we'll see in a minute here. I kind of started putting on heavy because I didn't want it to dull out with too much of the olive or the wine and the brown colors I was adding. So you can see them underneath, and when you spin it, it's just going to be all different, and it kind of has some different textures to it. Okay, so our bat is all finished, and so I'm going to take it off now. It's basically just a big kind of go where my see, it's pretty thick. I probably put close to 2 pounds on this bat between all the fibers. So I just kind of do a little rip, and then I let it lay there, and I get this part a little bit off. Roll to our next Velcro. And do the same thing. Let's do a good tear on it. It's very thick. So it's kind of the same as when you're drafting. You're making sure your hands aren't too tight or too close together because you're not going to be able to pull the fibers apart. So there's one bat. Actually, probably 2. So I fold it up, set it to the side, and then I'll pull the other one off and get them all packaged up. And then onward to the next color that I feel like doing. Thanks for watching. Okay, I think this is the last of my bats. So look at this big beauty. Just off the carder. So this is actually half of what comes off of one of my drums. And what I generally do is weigh it and then decide how many I want to break it down into. And I'm going to do this into three little bats. And then the other one, depending on the weight, maybe I'll just do 2. So there's a couple big and a couple small. I know it gets a little pricey to, so then I just start tearing where I think is kind of appropriate. And I try to go across. And just like on the drum, I'm kind of trying to give it enough room. You can see how beefy this bat is. And it weighed 13 ounces straight off the carder. So there's one bat, and then I just will kind of give it a little fold so it fits into what I want it to fit into for packaging. And I'll turn it your way so you can see. You can kind of see all the layers that have gone into it too. So I just give it a little roll, and you roll it up this way. So then people can kind of get a good idea of what the bat looks like. And there it is. I called this bat Poppy because that's what I saw in a poppy and turned it into a bat. Okay, onward to breaking up more fiber.